Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahawashi, Bahasham, Barakahak Wadash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahawashi. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule and teach well. And peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure unto the end. This is the brother Ra'aya coming at you with another lesson, and I'll be reading from an article on BusinessInsider.com titled, Trump's Cheap Stuff Blunder. The White House told America to suck it up on high prices. After Mamdani's win, he's scrambling to reverse. As we'll see, things aren't so good in a paradise, which, a lot of Americans are seeing, with the rising prices, lower wages, this cost of living crisis pushing people further and further to the edge. Nero 47, in the office is telling you Americans to just suck it up, looking more and more like that cruel lord and fierce king set over Egypt or America in Isaiah 19, verse 4. And hey, you ain't even seen things get bad yet. It's only going to continue to deteriorate out here as the U.S. economy continues to collapse and the elites' plan to, demolish this country intensifies as they're getting ready to bring in that new system, that great RESET, that fourth industrial revolution where everybody's going to have, micro C-hip implants in them, which is the mark of the BEAST in Revelation 13, verses 16 to 18. And all these things we're reading about, in this article perfectly lines up with biblical prophecy. The core of the modern American dream is cheap stuff. And contrary to the president's suggestion earlier this year, it turns out little girls do need 30 dolls, or at least their families want to be able to afford them, and they don't want the White House telling them otherwise. Nero 47's administration line on its economic policies in the opening months of the president's second term go-round was, in essence, deal with it. Yes, tariffs will cause short-term pain, and sure, efforts to reshore manufacturing and curb immigration may increase labor market uncertainty, but officials insist it will all be worth it. That's how we got Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent saying that access to inexpensive goods is not the essence of the American dream, and President Nero 47 saying that kids should make do with fewer pencils. The messaging isn't landing. Sacrifice is not a fun thing for consumers to do, especially when the payoff is vague at best and, at worst, contrary to the kind of economy they desire. Prices continue to rise. Affordability is the word of the moment, and consumers are frustrated with the lack of it everywhere they look. Which brings us to Revelation chapter 6. I'm going to start at verse 5. And this is dealing with the so-called black horsemen, with the four horsemen of the apocalypse, as these Christians like to call them, which are just symbolic of things that would be taking place during the last days. And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, "Come and see." And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, "A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine." And when we go to that word penny in the Strongs, it's G1220 denarion, which in the outline of biblical usage says Roman silver coin in New Testament times. It was the principal silver coin of the Roman Empire, and America is Rome reborn. So your modern day denarion would be that U.S. dollar, which continues to lose its purchasing power and nations, continue to find alternatives to using the dollar as the world reserve currency. From the parable of the laborers in the vineyard, it would seem that a denarius was then the ordinary pay for a day's wages. And, in the ancient world, and according to our law, a man was paid for the work he did in the day that he worked. It's not like most people now where they get paid every 2 weeks. So a measure of wheat for a penny and 3 measures of barley for a penny, using, damn near your entire paycheck to pay for a depreciating amount of goods. And what does that sound like? Inflation. And then on top of that, you've got shrinkflation, where you're paying the same or higher prices while the manufacturers are putting less product in the containers. And it's only going to get worse going forward. They had a theory of the case of how the economy would evolve earlier this year, said Mike Conzel, Senior Director of Policy and Research at the Economic Security Project, an economic think tank. The administration thought mass deportations would open up jobs for American workers, which, American workers out here in general don't want to do the jobs that, immigrants, mainly, the Northern Kingdom, the so-called Latinos were working, especially for the pay that they were getting paid, in a lot of cases under the table for. Doge-driven government layoffs would push workers toward private sector jobs, which, Doge has been a failure. A lot of people they laid off in the government, they had to end up hiring back because those were actually critical roles that needed to be filled. And then, with private sector roles, myself and other brothers have done plenty of videos showing that tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of workers have been getting laid off. These companies been closing down storefronts, and they've been moving towards AI and automation. And tariffs would incentivize a manufacturing boom and reshoring. Thus far, most of it hasn't been working out. Even non-political people are aware that something's floundering here, Conzel says. But, I'm going to jump around just to hit the main points. Americans in New York and across the country are justified in being miffed. Consumer prices have increased by 25% since 2020. While inflation appears to be slowing around the middle of 2025, it has picked up again and is on track to end the year at about 3% annual growth. The compounding effect of years of price increases is taking a financial and psychological toll. Hey, a measure of wheat for a penny, 3 measures of barley for a penny. It's the cumulative piece of it, says Claudia Schaum, the chief economist at New Century Advisors. Gas and egg prices have come down from their highs earlier in the year, but the price of coffee, beef, and bananas are going in the other direction. Beyond the grocery store, Ernie Tedeschi, a non-resident senior fellow at the Yale Budget Lab, explains that the price of durable goods, think furniture, appliances, and electronics, increased by 1.5% over the first 8 months of the year. During the same period last year, durable goods prices fell by 1%, and there was an expectation that prices for those bigger ticket items would continue into 2025. It's not just that they rose at all, it's that we were expecting a decline, Tedeschi says. That's not a pestilent size, but that's a meaningful increase. Services, prices, such as entertainment and transportation, have continued to rise at an elevated pace, too. The costs of major essentials are especially daunting for many consumers, including healthcare, childcare, and housing. The median home sales price in the U.S. is over $400,000. Just 5 years ago, it was much closer to $300,000. Childcare costs families thousands of dollars each year. Healthcare costs are expected to rise steeply for many Americans next year. And what was the whole point of that government shutdown? That Democrats didn't want Republicans to vote on taking away those credits for Obamacare, which if those get taken away, that's going to cause health insurance prices to skyrocket for a lot of people, pricing them out of the market. And they open back up the government with the hopes that when they go to vote again, that voting for those credits to continue is on the table. So they didn't get anything accomplished. So a perfect storm is brewing for you Americans out here. People are broadly feeling pretty negative about the economy, says Joanne Su, the director of consumer surveys at the University of Michigan. They're perfectly aware that inflation rates have fallen, she says, but even if goods aren't rising in price quite as fast, consumers can still remember the old sticker price, which is aggravating. Add on the fact that because of tariffs, many people don't think we're out of the woods when it comes to price hikes either. Another factor Sue thinks is worth noting: weakening incomes. People are worried about their job security, the labor market, and their current paychecks. 29% of respondents to the University of Michigan's November survey mentioned softer incomes as a negative factor in their personal finances compared to 20% the month before. Average wages for most workers are still outpacing inflation, but the job market is stagnant and many workers are stuck in place. And, at this point, it doesn't matter, if you get a raise, you get paid what, 18, 25, $30 an hour, you get a raise to keep up with rising prices. But if prices continue to rise, which they will, that negates, any gains you've made, with how much money you receive on the job. The most visible part of this low fire job market is entry-level workers being like, oh my God, I've done 5,000 interviews and all I got is this lousy t-shirt. But the other smaller violin is people who were job hopping to get raises for the last few years who just can't do that, says Michael Matovitz, the principal economist at the Roosevelt Institute, a progressive think tank. That's actually neither great for them nor for their employers, which this is Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 3. In the days when the keepers of the house shall tremble. And, this is talking about these people who deal with the economy, Wall Street, these economists, people like that. Because when you go to the etymology of what the word economy means, it's housekeeping. And it says that they're trembling. And you can find many, economists and pundits, you name it out here. Even in this article we're reading from, they're talking about the deteriorating economic situation in America. And the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease because they are few. And, when you're on your grind, you're working. And it says they cease because they are few. Why? Less jobs out here, people getting laid off, and those that look out of the windows be darkened, which, pretty much, if you're looking out of a window and don't see anything, what? It's dark outside, which goes into this bleak outlook a lot of people have for the U.S. economy, which we just read. People complaining about stagnating incomes and, being stuck in a job market where, they can't move up or they can't afford to lose their job. As I said, people are worried about their job security, the labor market, and their current paychecks. The TLDR here is people are tired of being surprised at how expensive everything is and increasingly annoyed that their paychecks aren't going as far. 2. A Washington Post ABC News Pisos poll from October found that 71% of American adults say they're spending more money on groceries compared to a year ago. Many consumers have hoped prices would fall. They don't realize that in many cases, the best they can hope for is for them to stop rising so much. A measure of wheat for a penny, 3 measures of barley for a penny. Yeah, I'll read this last paragraph. We pretty much got the point. Nero 47, who campaigned on making America affordable again, has struggled to counter the disillusionment. Speaking with reporters in early November, Trump touted the reduced cost of this year's Walmart Thanksgiving basket while overlooking that the 2025 edition includes fewer items and brushing aside concerns about prices. Once again, 3 measures of wheat for a penny and, a measure of barley for a penny, a decreasing amount of goods for a rising amount of prices. I don't want to hear about the affordability. Days later, Besant, the Treasury Secretary, in an interview on ABC News This Week said that the administration is making substantial progress and that prices will come down over the coming months next year. In a subsequent interview with Fox News, Besant said the administration would seek to lower coffee and banana prices very quickly. And at the end of the week, the president signed an executive order dropping reciprocal tariffs on food items such as beef, coffee, and avocados. The White House has also announced deals to cut the prices of weight loss drugs. Let's see if there's any more to read. That's pretty much it. But hey, nothing but doom and gloom in the news because that's the only thing that's coming to America. Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shah is getting ready to foreclose on this place. And at the same time, he's exposing, the inefficiency and the incompetence of Esau Edom, the so-called white man, as a ruler. And truly, as it says in Proverbs 29, verse 2, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, which, when the kingdom of heaven, where the true children of Israel, who are the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, are going to be ruling in. We're going to govern the earth under the laws, statutes, and commandments, and everything is going to work in order. People are going to rejoice. You're not going to have to worry about working a 9 to 5, working 2 to 3 jobs, inflation, anything like that. But when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. And all we've been reading about in that article, and you can just go to social media and put in cost of living crisis or economy or anything like that to see that the people are mourning under the rule of this wicked ruler, Esau Edom. But that's it with this video. With this video, I hope you sincere, Akim and Akwath, were edified. Just keep strong. We are almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babol, Kwam Yasharallah, and until